In 1900, the average American could expect to live to be 49 years old. Today, the lifespan has been broadened to an average of almost 70 years. But while we're living much longer, we're also reaping the harvest of special problems that go with a society which is not quite sure what to do about the increasing numbers of older people. The questions that beg for answers are staggering. How should these people get money to live after they can no longer work? Who should see to their health needs? Is there a useful place for these people in our community, or should they be quietly put out to pasture? In Duval County alone, more than 28,000 persons are 65 years of age or older. On a nationwide basis, almost 1 person out of 10 is in that age group. Tonight, we present their story. In time, it may also be the story of every other person who will live into that bittersweet period of life known traditionally and ironically as the golden years.
WJXT presents another in its documentary series, Project 4. Tonight, The Perilous Years.
This man is 97 years old. Like most elderly people, he happens to be content with his lot. Except for minor inconveniences, he professes no complaints. To others who would be asked to trade places with him, the judgment might be different. This man's income totals $66 per month, a check from the state welfare office. With $66, he must pay rent, buy food, obtain clothing, get medical care, and purchase the other necessities of life. His home is this small room. It has no heat, no running water. He shares a common bath down the hall. He has no television set, nor even a radio. This man has hundreds of counterparts, living alone in small flats in the downtown area of Jacksonville, many of which are dingy and dirty. Many of these people are handicapped by illness or disability and are confined to their rooms for long periods of time. In many cases, they seldom have visitors. Some go for days without seeing another human being. It's easy to see why many of these people have found old age to be a bitter disillusionment. Large numbers of these elderly persons are utterly dependent on the small compensation they receive from Social Security or state funds. Fully 7,000 are on the state welfare rolls. Almost all of these people have a natural pride which makes them reluctant to admit their plight or even to talk about it. This man is not reluctant. His name is Don Baker. His formal work ended a number of years ago, and he's acquired a sharp insight into the feelings of men and women who are forced to be idle in their older years.
Being retired first gives a man a pleasant feeling of release, a vacation when he no longer has to submit to a superior, such as an office manager, a gang boss, or a board of directors. But before long, he discovers to his horror that he has been marooned on what might as well be a desert island with nothing in sight worth doing. In spite of swarming crowds, all of whom feel important and useful as he used to feel, who shoulder him aside as a sort of foolish joke worth nothing anymore, in spite of this, he is supposed to be cheerful and grateful, even if his pension consigns him to the edge of starvation. No matter how he tries to reconcile himself with being exiled, worthless, ostracized, he cannot escape the sober fact that the human race has disowned him. He no longer belongs. And this is the fact that really hurts, not being of any use anymore. We who have been retired hunger for a chance to recover someplace where we can still feel needed.
If it is true that society has shuffled these people aside, they have managed to make the very best of it. They are part of a specially designed community of about 350 elderly persons, which is organized to give its members a continuing purpose in life and which attends to their special needs. These are members of the Loyal Order of Moose, a fraternal body which has for almost 40 years operated Moose Haven, a home for the aged in Orange Park. They have earned the right to come here by maintaining membership in the Moose fraternity for a period of at least 15 years. Since the membership dues each year are not particularly high, it means that they have invested in an extremely inexpensive form of insurance against the onset of difficulty in old age. Not all retired members of the Moose come here, since many are able to look after themselves. Moose Haven is concerned primarily with those of its people who are in need, usually with annual incomes of $1,000 or less. The dividends for the Moose member on this so-called insurance are handsome. Moose Haven is a community unto itself, with residence halls, dining halls, a commissary, an auditorium, a fishing pier, and dozens of other facilities in its 25 buildings. It has its own dairy and a big health center equipped to handle 100 patients or more. The residents here average about 79 years of age. They have their own bank, and at frequent town hall meetings, they take to the floor to air their complaints. The occupational program here is productive both to the community and its residents. Every person whose physical condition will permit is recruited as a guide, a painter, a yard man, office worker, or in a dozen other categories. He works at his job about 3 hours a day, gets paid for it, and feels like a necessary human being at the same time. Moose Haven is a superb example of what private initiative, as opposed to government programs, can do to meet the varied needs of older citizens. As individuals, these older people could never duplicate this program. But the Moose and other bodies, by virtue of a collective concern for each other, have created a dynamic environment to take much of the dread from old age. It is strange indeed that more churches, fraternal groups, and other bodies in the nation have not profited by the experience here and taken a similar road. And the answer must certainly lie in a need for much more concern with the problems and the needs of aging people. A lack of planning by each individual is almost certainly a factor, since many people simply will not look ahead to old age and plan for the future.
These are scenes in a nursing home in Duval County where people are spending their later years. The reasons they come to places like this are varied. Some by choice, some by fear of illness, many by the onset of illness which requires nursing care, still others by circumstances within their family or even the lack of a family. These nursing homes, in addition to homes for the aged, which provide only minimal nursing care, are a significant factor in the story of aging people. The really fortunate older person, of course, is the one who has adequate income, good housing of his own or with his family, good health or the means to care for himself, and a routine which inhibits loneliness and boredom. Many people fall into this category. But most of the people in nursing homes are deprived of one or more of these conditions. These homes have generally improved on the image of the poorhouse or the old folks' home. But as a group, they're still far from being proper accommodations for elderly people. The problem is not usually with the operators, but is unfortunately a question of money. Most of the residents have very low incomes, usually in the form of Social Security or old age assistance from the state, although some have assistance from their families. But a good constructive program for each person costs in the neighborhood of $200 a month or more, and a welfare check that grants $100 can't be stretched very far. As a result, there's often a shortage of nurses, orderlies, facilities, and perhaps most important, time for a program of occupational and recreational therapy which could put some additional meaning into the lives of these people. Of the 7,000 aged persons in Duval County receiving welfare assistance from the state, about 40% are Negroes. Problems facing elderly Negro individuals are not much different in kind from the rest of the community, but they are in some cases different in degree. Housing is a serious dilemma with these people, both in quantity and quality. Because income in this segment of the population is lower, it aggravates the day-to-day problems of the elderly. Recreational and leisure time activities for Negro aged in the city on an organized basis are almost non-existent. This is one of the better nursing homes for Negroes in the county. It's 10 years old, has a capacity of 35. It's very cramped for space, although a planned new building will ease the crowding somewhat. As with some other nursing homes, there appears to be little more for residents to do except sit and talk. The All Saints Home for the Aged in Riverside is an example of relatively new nursing care facilities. It opened its doors in the older building in 1955 and grew into a new modern structure in 1959. The home has a capacity of 30 residents, all of whom are Catholics, and plans to almost double its capacity in the near future with a new building. Other nursing homes and additions are in the planning stage throughout the county, especially those capitalizing on the FHA's generous financing program. But it's not likely they will materially solve the city's urgent need for more nursing care beds. There's still much room for religious and other private organizations to expand into this area, which is almost certain to be an increasing problem in the years just ahead.
In Jacksonville, the several good homes which cater to the needs of older people are usually the ones endowed with sufficient funds to make a good program of care possible. This is one of the very best, River Garden, the Hebrew home for the aged in Riverside. Under the guiding hand of Executive Director Sidney Entman, it is a lavish facility superbly equipped to fill the needs and wants of its population of 72 residents. Perhaps its most significant asset is its staff, which numbers 52 persons, providing an excellent ratio of 2 staff members for every 3 residents. The cost of caring for a guest here runs about $250 per month, which makes the home moderately expensive. But residents are taken in whether or not they have the ability to pay such fees. More than half the current population, in fact, is receiving welfare assistance from either state or federal sources. The deficit in the operation, which may run as high as 1/3 of the budget, is made up from philanthropy, and this reflects the quite strong obligation felt by the Jewish community to provide for its older persons who are in need. This is far from being a universal point of view, incidentally, and many sociologists have observed in America a diminishing concern of the family for the care of its members. Much planning is in evidence here to provide a positive environment for residents, from the numerous telephone stalls to background music in the hallways, from nursing stations which are deliberately built out of sight to special devices in the bathrooms to aid the infirm. But River Garden's philosophy goes far beyond such material trappings, as explained now by the home's executive director.
Our home for the aged has developed into a miniature community. Under one roof, total living experiences are provided for those aged and infirm unable to find comfort, care, or satisfaction in their own home. Unlike a hospital or other institutional setting, our focus is not on the disabilities of the individual, but on his abilities. We provide the resident the opportunity to share satisfying group activities and interpersonal relationships, as well as the pursuit of individual interests. The very high incidence of chronic and disabling illnesses among the aged makes it essential to provide good medical and nursing care. Medical science cannot do much to reverse the course of these diseases, and generally can only provide remedial measures or prevent further deterioration. Therefore, realistically, our goals for medical rehabilitation are very limited, and the accent must be shifted from illness to wellness. This adds to the climate of hope and provides the extra motivation to life. By providing such a dynamic setting and program, we have gradually removed the stigma associated with homes for the aged. They are no longer well hidden from community view, but are situated on good sites within the community. As the public image of the home for the aged is improved, this better image is reflected in our home by the morale of the residents that someone really cares.
Probably the most ominous specter haunting the older citizen is the ever-present possibility of illness. While large numbers of older people are in good health, many others suffer in varying degrees from disease and disability. This is Mrs. Margaret Jack, Supervisor of Welfare Services for the State Department of Public Welfare.
One of the most serious dilemmas of the aging is the fact that with retirement comes a sharp drop in income at a time when advancing age is likely to require more medical care. Older people are more vulnerable to chronic illness, heart disease, arthritis, mental illness, these are long-term illnesses requiring long-term medical care. This is coupled with a spiraling cost of medical care which is woven throughout the entire picture of the aging individual. Hospital costs, which reflect the greatest rise in recent years, are a particular burden to the older person, since their stay in the hospital is frequently longer than the stay of other age groups. New drugs, new forms of surgery, new diagnostic equipment, these and many other factors contribute to put the cost of medical care out of the reach of large numbers of older people. Many in this age group do have income with which to meet the cost of their medical care and nursing services. But since more than half of the persons over 65 in the United States have income of less than $1,000 of their own to meet their needs for a year, it must be acknowledged that large numbers of the aged have a real struggle to provide for themselves even the barest minimum of medical needs.
The considerable debate in recent years over a proposal to broaden the Social Security program to provide additional medical care for the aged would appear to be evidence of a dissatisfaction within our society with existing provisions for medical care. One of the principal arguments in this debate is that of doctors who feel that medical care should be provided only to those who need it and want it, not forced upon people as the Social Security program would do, since this would lead to socialized medicine. A counter-argument is that while medical care may be available now to those who need it, it's often a degrading and difficult task for old people to avail themselves of it, either by going through a treadmill at a county hospital or otherwise begging for charity. The issue involved here is not simple, but it is important and deserves a great deal of careful, serious evaluation. Duval Medical Center, the county hospital in Jacksonville, is a mecca for older people who have nowhere else to turn for medical care. It's operated with county funds, in addition to payment by patients scaled according to their ability to pay. Even the treatment available here presents problems to the elderly, not the least of which is the frequent difficulty of finding transportation to get here. Once in the building, they must often join long lines of other people, first to check in, then to wait still longer after being assigned to the proper clinic, and still further waiting for drugs and medication. These are chronic delays caused by overcrowding. They have not only been partially relieved by recent improvements at the center. The need for other types of nursing facilities in Jacksonville is underscored at DMC by the fact that in many cases, older persons with chronic illnesses requiring only a minimal amount of nursing care occupy beds for a long period of time, beds that are badly needed for persons with short-term acute illnesses.
One of the most overlooked aspects of aging is the need for older people to do more than occupy a chair or a bed and simply vegetate. Society has probably offended these people most by relegating them to the role of second-class citizens, necessary to have around, but of little other use. When a man's eyesight is bad, or his income is small, or when he is confined to a bed, the opportunity to do things or to participate in life is sharply curtailed. The lucky ones are those who can get outdoors, who have companionship, and who can find useful things to do. Nursing home operators speak sadly of how their patients have visitors and much attention on holidays like Christmas and Easter, but are largely ignored the rest of the time. It is a devastating experience for anyone to be left out, to be rejected by the group. But it happens more completely, perhaps, to the aged.
Does loneliness affect the entire outlook on life of an older person?
I think it does, very materially, because they have so little to look forward to, but except the end. You know, that's lots of them just living from day to day. See, and that's if they had something to occupy them, they would be a much happier human being.
This is W.H. Bennett, a Jacksonville man, well along in years, but far better off than most of his contemporaries in health, income, and an exuberance for life.
These golden years, then, are not necessarily so golden, are they?
No.
Could they be?
Huh?
Could they be golden years?
Well, you know, the people don't like to be discarded. They like to, you know, there are a great many conditions where elderly people they're not taken in, they're not recognized, they're not, I know from myself lots of times, younger people, they don't ask me for things or information. And now my grandchildren, I don't think they realize what my experience would be to them. See, if they would just ask me, but of course they have a mother and a father, and they come first, you know. They very often leave me out of the conversation. That's just general. That's with everybody, except where they're all old people together. When I say old people, all the way from 50 on up. You know.
This is one of the few places in Jacksonville where older citizens can gather. The Senior Center is more than 6 years old and is literally a haven for people in this age group. To many, this is an extremely vital ingredient in life, and without the chance to visit here several times a week, their lives would be utterly empty. To some, the snacks served here in the afternoon are a welcome addition to a food budget that is threadbare. The most prevalent activity here is bridge, but other games, community singing, art classes, and television are also very popular. The center has been so successful that it has outgrown its quarters and is in need of more room. One of the more intrinsic needs filled by a center like this is the chance for people of similar age, interests, and experiences to congregate. And it is a pity that so few gathering places like this one have been provided in Jacksonville. The people who use this one, in fact, are largely those who live in the downtown area, and many of whom live within walking distance. Uncounted numbers of others who live in outlying sections of the city often are unable to get here for want of transportation or bus fare. Another serious aspect about leisure time is the fact that an automatic retirement at a particular age has deprived older people not only of income, but of a purpose. With the rapid approach of automation and with the increasing difficulty even of people as young as 45 to find work once they have been displaced, this question of early termination of employment looms much larger in the near future. It also involves, of course, a callous waste of talent and skills. A view expounded here by Don Baker.
No man who's retired wants to take the place of a younger man in a needed job. But there must be numerous places where a skilled older person can perform useful tasks and services. And among the thousands of retired people in Duval County, there must be an enormous amount of talent and skill which is being needlessly wasted. Surely, there are many highly desirable returns. May I suggest that steps to find out who these people are and what trained skills they can offer will lead to results showing real, even dramatic, success.
In this half hour, we've asked many questions and provided few answers. There's probably less being done in Jacksonville for older people than any other age group. This reflects a breakdown in three areas: in the responsibility of the individual to take care of himself and plan for his own later years, in the responsibility of the family unit to care for its own members, and in the responsibility of the community to assist where it has to. The Community Planning Board of the Community Chest United Fund has formulated a blueprint of services needed for the aging, including a central clearinghouse to advise and direct older people to help that already exists. This program needs cooperation from the entire community. In our report, you've seen examples of dynamic programs for the aging, which are being accomplished under the banner of private initiative. We might wonder why more such programs are not being launched in a day when the hue and cry against the growing octopus of government is so loud. Perhaps the thorniest problem of all is that of deciding just where in our society the old person can fit. He has been displaced and put aside, while we worship the deceptive and fleeting god of youth. Until we can find answers to this question, the golden years of old age will continue to lose their luster.